5 years ago, I completed 30 years teaching at Regent's Theological College in England. It had marked the conclusion of an era for me where I'd learned much and I'd been granted many opportunities for scholarly and spiritual development, and I loved it all. And just before I left, I was asked to reflect on that time to the faculties of a couple of theological colleges, including Regent's. This is how I began my talk. Seeing the crowds, Jesus went up the mountain, and when he'd sat down, his disciples came to him, and he opened his mouth and he taught them. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. You are the salt of the world. You are the light of the world. Love your enemies. And when you pray, pray like this: Our Father who art in heaven. Don't be anxious about life. And Peter said, do you want us to take this literally, Jesus, or should we contextualize it for first century non-Western Jews? And Andrew said, how many books did you use for that lecture, Jesus, and have you included them in your bibliography? Another of the disciples, James, said, is this coming up in the exam? And Philip said, Jesus, do you want us to memorize all these points? And Matthew, the disciple, said, Jesus, can you go over the third point? I didn't have quite enough time to write it down. Bartholomew said, Jesus, when you said that we should be lights in the world, did you mean that we should be like candles or like searchlights? And Judas said, Jesus, do we have to do all this? John said, I'm sorry, Jesus. I think I dozed off. Did I miss anything important? And Thomas, another of the disciples, said, I've got some questions, Jesus. Well, Thaddeus said, is it coffee time? And Jesus wept. Well, with apologies to all those I have just mentioned in my reflections, I considered this question in my talk. Here it is. Would Jesus have sent his disciples to Bible college? And if so, what would that Bible college have been like? You see, Jesus had a very clear agenda when he set up his learning program to create disciples. And having established who he wanted to train and what he wanted them to be trained to do, then he set about training them strategically and efficiently. And a question we rightly come back to as theological educators from time to time is this: who are we creating in our programs, and are we succeeding in our aims? When I went to Regent's to teach, I was the youngest faculty member, just 31 years of age, and only out of Bible college myself, 6 years earlier. Well, over these past 30 years, I've seen major changes to our teaching ethos and curricula, the introduction of our own degrees, undergraduate, postgraduate, and doctoral at Regent's. And as faculty, we have strategized and changed and planned and prayed ourselves into the college that we are, moving campus twice in the process. We've changed our name. We've changed principals 5 times in my time, as well as replacing all our faculty, and now, including me. And now in my talk, I'd like to offer some reflections. Well, if you're interested in my reflections on Bible college education in general, you might like to read the rest of the paper. So check out our Word and Spirit website, where you can read a copy of Reflections after 30 years of lecturing.